We've been going through, studying, talking about Reverend Edwin Gaines' 4 spiritual laws for prosperity. And if you haven't discovered it yet, let me just tell you that this work takes commitment. It takes commitment to tithe. Not just once, but each and every time money comes into our lives. It takes commitment to set goals and then to go outside our comfort zone in order to achieve them. It takes commitment to do the work of forgiveness, for facing the hurts of the past. And today you will see that it takes commitment in order to live into your divine purpose. Now, it's a commitment that's not wishy-washy. It's not a commitment that says, oh, I think I'll try this, or I might want to try that, or it seems like other people are doing it, or gee, I could, I guess, maybe. It's the kind of commitment that says, I'm going to do this by God. I am going to do this. We have more power in us than most people realize. For those of you who know Edwin Gaines, you know that she introduces herself by saying, hello, my name is Edwin Gaines and I am a woman of power. Now she doesn't do this because she thinks she's somebody better than us. She doesn't do this because she's a minister. She introduces herself this way. My name is Edwin Gaines and I am a woman of power, because she believes it to be true about herself, and she believes it to be true about each and every one of us. It is an affirmation that draws us out, that calls us to a greater place. It's an affirmation that when we speak it, we recognize places inside of us come alive. My name is Mindy Tucker, and I am a woman of power.
Yes.
Yes, I am. Now, I'm also not a selfish person. And I'm also not a very patient person. So when I hear something that resonates with me that I think is a good idea, I also decide that maybe I should try this on, and I want you to know that I recognize it's a long time between right now and when we walk out of service. And it's an even longer time between right now and when we get to our cars, and it's an even longer time between right now and when we get home. And maybe we'll remember to say, you know, I think I want to try that on. So here's the phrase. Hello, my name is, and I am a man, I am a woman, I am a person of power. You pick. Because you know what's right for you. I know that you're a man of power. I know that you're a woman of power. I know that you're a woman of power. I know that you're a man of power. I know that we are people of power. So let's just try it. And in that blank spot, you put your name. And you got to get your hand up when you say it. So get your hand up and say, my name is Mindy Tucker, and I am a woman of power. Any alive spots start to tingle? Okay, stand up. Stand up, because we want all of your power to get activated. Together. Hello, my name is Mindy Tucker, and I am a woman of power. And I invite you to introduce somebody to your own divinity. Turn to somebody not far from you and say, hello, my name is Mindy Tucker, and I am a woman of power. And turn to somebody else. Hello, my name is Mindy Tucker, and I am a woman of power. Are you alive yet? What? Okay. Take your aliveness and sit down. Take your aliveness and come back to where we are. I want to say just a few words about affirmations, because affirmations, especially affirmations like this one, pull us out. They pull us into unfamiliar territory. It's like we set affirmations, set these truths at the edges of our known consciousness and draw us away from the accustomed place that we are to living in. It brings us outside of our box. There are stories about tigers held in captivity in zoos, and what tigers tend to do in their cages, they begin to pace, and so they pace on this side, and they pace on that side, they turn around, they pace this way, and they pace back to where they were. And we are very much like that tiger because we tend to think the same thoughts, we tend to do the same things, and we tend to feel the same feelings. So even us, like a tiger in our box, we're creating those grooves, those pathways, those patterns. And what researchers have found is even as the fence of the tiger habitat has been moved and expanded, that tiger will continue to go in those same interior paths. So unless we have a spiritual awakening or an affirmation that draws us beyond what we know, we too are like the tiger carrying on in those same paths. But we can, with affirmations, draw ourselves beyond what we think we can do. With affirmation, we can be reminded of our divine purpose, of our calling. You know, we have mastered survival. We have truly mastered survival. And how do I know that's true? Because we're here. At 59 years old, I have mastered survival. At 82 years old, you have mastered survival, or 73, or 43, or 23. And I think, Bridget, except for Evelyn, who's walking out to Sunday school, you're about the youngest person in the world, and even you have mastered survival, right? We have mastered survival, and life is so much more than survival. Life is about shining our light. It's about sharing our wisdom. It's about following our passion. It's about living our divine purpose. But some of us never got taught that, so we never knew. Some of us got taught that, but we forgot. And some of us were taught that and we knew, but with every painful experience, every hurt, every trauma, we began to cover up our divine purpose. Sometimes we cover up our divine purpose with negative thinking or addiction. Nikki and I have a colleague who tells this story on himself about how he grew up in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. He finished high school, he went to college on a scholarship, and while he was in college, he joined a fraternity. And if you know anything about fraternities, every time there's a celebration, you drink excessively. And even if it's Tuesday, you drink excessively. Okay, so he started these patterns when he was in college, and when he graduated, he wanted to go into broadcasting. So he moved to Seattle, and he got a good job. And he became better and better and better at his job. He was once dubbed the most delicious voice in all of Seattle. But with every award, every accolade, every promotion, he went out and celebrated by consuming excessive alcohol. He also had an Irish temper, and between the Irish temper and the alcohol together, he began to get in fights. And pretty soon his friends would no longer come and bail him out of jail. So at his last resort, he called his mother. Now this man, whose voice could cut butter, was over 6 feet tall. He was big and he was burly, but his little Irish mother was 5'2". And this was the 70s, and she came in with her handbag that matched her pumps, and she had her pearls and her hat and her gloves on, and she marched right up to that jail cell, and she said, "I don't know who you think you are, but this is not it." A very simple phrase. I don't know who you think you are, but this is not it. It got him up on his feet and into a program. And in a program, he began to get curious about his spirituality. I believe that curiosity is the fuel for our genius. It's the fuel for our divine purpose. Have you ever gotten curious about something and all of your spidey senses started going off? This is the same kind of curiosity that Benjamin Franklin had when he started to ask questions about electricity. It's the same kind of curiosity that Einstein had when he started asking questions about time and space. It's the same kind of curiosity that Madame Curie had when she started asking questions about invisible atoms. It's the same kind of curiosity that Jane Goodall had when she started asking questions about animals, or Steve Jobs when he started asking questions about the link between science and humanity, and how could he possibly link the two to serve us all better. It is that curiosity that fuels our divine purpose, that allows us to get excited and stirred up about it. Divine purpose is very different than goals. Goals are concrete, they're tangible, there's a beginning and an end to a goal. But with divine purpose, it's a way of living, it's a way of life. So you could be an artist, and you could say, I have a goal of creating the perfect watercolor painting. But if your divine purpose was to be an artist, your divine purpose really is about creating art that invites other people to get curious about life. So you see how divine purpose is something that comes from the inside, and we all have it. We have a divine purpose of being the light of the world. We have the divine purpose of being wisdom, of being something that calls us and our world to a greater place. Edwin Gaines says this: we have come to this planet to play at the highest level that has ever been played. We have come to play at the level of Gandhi, of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., of Mother Teresa, at the level of every great and wise soul who has ever made a difference. We have come to play with the big kids. And we have come to play with the big kids. So how do we know what our divine purpose is? Because we may not have figured it out yet, or we may have figured it out and had some things that were blocking us. She has 10 questions in the book. She starts off with, what one issue seems most important to me? What would be the perfect solution to this challenge? Can I visualize it and see it clearly in my mind's eye? Can I write a description of what it would look like if the transformative work were to be complete and perfect? She has 10 of those questions that I think are incredibly powerful and could take weeks, if not months, to go through in discovery for what your specific divine purpose is. And then she goes on to ask 3 questions I absolutely love. Does what you are curious about bring you joy? Who ever heard of a divine purpose that wasn't fun? That you didn't enjoy? Does that idea bring you joy? Is there space in your curiosity to make stuff up as you go along? You know, we don't know the end product of our lives. We get to make stuff up. We get to be creative. The ultimate creativity of God resides in us. Are you willing to do it even though others may object? And then Edwin goes on to tell a beautiful story about her father. Edwin had been in ministry for over 20 years, and her Southern Baptist father didn't believe that women should be preachers. So he never went to hear her speak. But she had been invited to speak at the Unity of Houston, which is a huge spiritual community, and off she went. Her father was living in Houston. It happened to be his 93rd birthday, and she said, Daddy, I would really love it if this one time, you could just come and hear me speak. And so he did. And at the end of the service, you know how the line goes, so all these people waited in line to talk to Edwin, and so did he. He waited in line to talk to Edwin, and when he came up to her, he put his hands on her shoulder and he grabbed her tight. He had tears streaming down his face, and he said, please forgive me. I didn't know who you are. I didn't know who you are. So are we willing to be curious about what brings us joy? Are we willing to be curious about making stuff up? And are we willing to stand in our divine purpose, even at the objection of other people? Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Richard Bach said, it's up to us to be seekers. And Edwin Gaines says, it's up to us to be finders, and the world needs more finders. And I take it one more step and I say, it's up to us not only to be seekers and finders, but to actually do something about it. It's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to engage. In the book of James in Christian scriptures, faith without works is dead. Unity's fifth principle, we can know everything there is to know about everything. And unless we put it into action, it's not worth a hill of beans. So, are you willing to engage in the 4 spiritual laws of prosperity? And Edwin says, when we're willing to engage, we'll notice that our life can take a positive turn and things just start exploding beautifully all around us. We find that we have great joy in tithing. We find that we have great satisfaction in the possibility of goal setting. We find that we have a greater capacity for peace because of our forgiveness work. And we find that we have joy in our everyday living. Or, she says, our life could go the other way. All of a sudden, everything could start to fall apart. The relationship dies. The job gets lost. We seem to have no direction because all of our pieces of our lives, our support system that we've had for years and years, begins to crumble. And she said, that's merely, and she said, hear these words, that's merely us getting rid of what no longer serves us. Hear my words. We need to get rid of the good life in order to have the even better life. It takes courage, it takes commitment, and it takes curiosity. We have all of those things in it. In scriptures, Jesus said in the book of Matthew, let your light so shine before men so that they may see your good works. She says, let your light shine so brightly before men and women that they see God in you. And in seeing God in you, they will know then that God is in themselves as well. Let your light shine. Let it. You don't have to make it shine. You only have to let it shine. And we do that by being ourselves. No act, no pretense. We do that by being ourselves. Let's sing about us, each one of us being holy light as we come into a time of meditation.
I begin to move into a time of meditation. Very gently and quietly say the sound out loud together. Let's say it again, and this time allow yourself to feel the vibration that moves through your body as you say together. That sound opens the space of creativity in our brains. And as we open that space of creativity and curiosity, let's turn our awareness to the curiosity of who we are and what we are, created in the image and the likeness of God. All the capacities of God lie within us. And as we turn our awareness inward, think about your holy purpose. Often it's that thing that we do so easily and so effortlessly that we think everyone can do it. What is that for you? Oftentimes we're willing to do it 24/7 because we enjoy it so much. What is that for you? We know from the Gospel of Thomas that it serves us to bring forth our gifts in this world. It serves us to allow our lights to shine. Within we are radiant beacons of light, living in peace, living in love, living in joy, living on purpose, an invitation to others to live purposefully also. Am I willing to live full out in my holy purpose? Let's take that question. Am I willing to live full out in my holy purpose into the sacred and holy silence?